Pixel Overdose.
Hey guys, welcome to another episode of Pixel Overdose. I'm your host Jagan, and today we'll be learning how to use Adobe After Effects CS4. Here's just a sneak preview of what kind of things you can do with it. Check it out. So that's pretty much just a small taste of what potential you have with After Effects. It's usually used for motion graphics, animation, and applying visual effects to footage. You can also use it to edit footage. I also run another channel, mostly automotive stuff, and in that channel most of the videos are edited with this program. So if you want to check it out, please go to youtube.com/machinezealots. And let's get started. So like in Photoshop, instead of opening new canvases or new files, in After Effects we open up new compositions to start. Now a new project is what we're looking at right now. This is a project, and equivalent to a Photoshop canvas would be using compositions. So here you can click this create a new composition, or you can go up here composition, new composition. Both do the same things. Once you click it, a prompt will open and ask you the composition name. Right now I'm going to call this main, and here are a lot of presets, and for those of you who know what you're doing, please choose the presets, or if you're learning for the first time, just follow my direction. So I'm going to create a small video here. Let's go 720 by 480. Now this pixel aspect ratio, we're going to keep it square pixels, and this frame rate, let's make this 30 frames per second. Down here is the duration. This is how long you want this project to be. You can set it to whatever number you want right now, since you can change it later on. But right now I'm just gonna say 10 seconds. So it goes hours, minutes, seconds, and frames. Now 30 frames per second is exactly what it says. So if you have say 15 frames here, that's half a second. 30 frames would just make it 11 seconds, as you can see. Okay, so this depends on what frame rate you have it set to. Okay, so I'm just going to make this 10, and I'm going to press OK. Then right away you're going to see this right here in the center. This is like our Photoshop canvas. This is like our image. We're at 50% magnification, and here is where it says main. Now unlike Photoshop, it's not just based on layers. There's also based on linear timelines. Okay, so I'm just going to take a type tool here, and I'm just going to type with the white color selected. I'm just going to type something. I'm going to type Pixel Overdose. Oh, and right now the quality is set to quarter, so only 25% of the quality. This increases render times so it won't chug. Okay, so I have a text here. I'm gonna increase the size. As you see, once I clicked the type tool, it created a new layer. Now this layer has been applied to the full 10 seconds. Well, let's say if I wanted to animate something like Pixel Overdose is helpful. throughout these 10 seconds, what I would have to do is I would have to cut this layer in time, cut it down, and what I can do is I can duplicate this layer, pressing Control D, pull it out in time, and I'm going to do another one, Control D, pull that out in time, and I'm just going to set it. So what it's going to do, just double click the layer to change the text, is helpful. Now what this does is it plays the 10 seconds, and at each time it shows that current layer. Okay, if you've ever done any editing on any editing software, you should be able to know this is pretty straightforward. So if, for example, if I overlap this pixel overdose text over onto the is, you'll see that they come on at the same time. So just something to be aware about. Okay, and today we're just gonna go through some of the basic animation functions. Now for each layer, it doesn't matter if it's an image, you can import images. I just double clicked. Let's see here. Let's take this one. Okay, all of these get applied to your project. So when you save your After Effects file, it saves the entire project. So all the files linked in here, imported inside, it saves it in here. Now we'll get into more detail how to organize your project later, but for now, if I drag this image that I've just imported into my main comp, as you can see, it's really big. There's several properties you need to know about animation that I'm going to teach you right now. So first thing is scale. As you can see, I brought up the scale by selecting the layer. If you press S, you'll bring up the scale modifier. The next is position. If you press P, you'll bring up the position modifier. If you press R, it'll bring up the rotation modifier. And if you press T, it brings up the transparency modifier. Even though it says opacity here, pressing T will bring up the transparency. So those 4 letters are very important. Now each of them has these percentages, or in the rotations case, it has degrees. Now these are all values that you can insert and you can animate with. So let's say I want to animate this pixel overdose title. I want it to fade in and then fade out. Okay. Anything in After Effects that has this little icon, that's a stopwatch. It means that you can animate this property, this value. Okay, so I'm going to set my timeline to 0 seconds at the start. I'm going to turn my opacity or transparency down to 0. So you can see my title is gone. If you click the stopwatch, you'll see this little diamond shape. Now this is called a keyframe. Okay, this stores the information at the current time, the information that you set it to. Now if I wanted to fade in, let's say in a second, I would jump my timeline to a second here, and I would turn this opacity up to 100. Now you see that every time I want to animate it, you don't have to click the stopwatch again. In fact, don't. If you click the stopwatch, it's going to cancel all animations. So once the stopwatch is enabled, just keep it enabled, but change the value instead. So right now it's going to go from 0. As you can see, it's slightly changing up all the way to our keyframe, which is the value stored at 100. So the computer will do the math for you and even out the transition. Okay, and let's say at the end of 10 seconds here, we want it to fade out. Now, normally what you would do is go to the end, and you'll probably think, oh, okay, I'm just going to make this 0. Now, there's a problem with that. What it's going to do is going to go from 0 to 100, and then from 100, starting from here, to 0. So really, this is just a 9-second animation of it fading away. But what if you want to fade it in, hold it for 8 seconds, and then fade it out? What you would do is you would go to wherever you want the animation to start again, and instead of it being at 11, which was the transitions time, I'm just going to set it to 100. Now, once you change the value, a keyframe is automatically added. So if you don't want keyframes on some places, be careful of where you have this timeline set. Because if you set it right here and you change the value, that's going to change the keyframe. So now it's going to go from 100 to 84 and then to 0. Okay. So I'm just going to delete this keyframe. With it highlighted, just press the delete key. Now if you want to change the value on a current keyframe, just make sure your timeline is set to that keyframe. So if you wanted this to set to, let's say, 70, then it would go from 100 to 70 here, and then to 0. Okay. So definitely experiment with those. Now all of these have the same properties. You set a value at a certain time, click the stopwatch, and then move it into time, and then change the value, and the computer will do it everything else. Now let's say this augmented.jpg. Let's say I want to shrink it down over time as this is fading on. I'm going to press S for scale, and I'm just going to click the stopwatch here to set it from the front, from the beginning. I'm just going to align my timeline to this keyframe. And I'm just going to change the value of the scale. Remember, once the stopwatch is active, anything you do will create a keyframe. So I'm just going to scroll this down. Let's say about here. So it's at 69%. Let's make this an even 70. Okay. So now what it's going to do is it's going to fade in the title and zoom in. Alright, now what if you want to combine things like scale and position? Right, so if you want multiple properties open, you can hold shift and click the corresponding property. So if I have scale open and I want position open at the same time, hold shift and then P for position, and you'll see the position come up. Now let's say I want this image, after shrinking down, I want it to move off the screen to the right. What I can do is I can set it so the timeline is at it ending in shrinking. Click the position property. Move it in time. Let's go up to 4 seconds here. And what you can do is you can just move the image and it will take that value, or you can actually do it through these numbers here. You could type it, you can scroll it, or you can just mouse drag it. It'll work. I'm just gonna move it straight off. So it shrinks while the title fades on, and then it slides away. Then the title fades out. Okay, so you could do the same thing with rotation. Let's add a rotation to this title as the image goes away. If I hold Shift R, so it brings up rotation with the opacity on. Of course, you could just click R and hide the opacity, but I'm just going to keep them on. So let's say the rotation does from here to 6 seconds. And let's say it does 1 full rotation. Now, This is a positive 1. So what it's going to do is going to rotate clockwise. But if you type negative 1, it will do a rotation counterclockwise. So that's something to be aware of. And if you don't want it to be a full rotation, of course, there's these, you see the plus numbers and the degree symbol. Now obviously once it's 360 degrees, it will apply a 1, because that's one full rotation. So if anything in between, you won't add a 1 here, otherwise it's going to spin out of control really fast. Okay, and also I just realized I'm not at the right keyframe. So I'm just going to move the keyframe down here. So I want to adjust this value of the keyframe. Let's say I want to leave it at 180 degrees. For some reason I just want it upside down. So so it comes in, fades in, the image goes away, it rotates, stops at 180 degrees, and then it fades out. Okay. Now that's all the time we have for this episode. Hope you learned something, and definitely come check out some new episodes of After Effects. This is a very exciting program, and I'm very excited to teach this. So hope you guys got your daily dose, and I'll see you guys next time.